All right, let's resume the meeting. Moving on to item 3. To receive views on issues related to the redevelopment of civil servants' quarters developed under the Civil Servants Cooperative Building Society scheme. First of all, I'd like to welcome the administration and deputations as well as individuals. The list has already been tabled, so I'm not going to repeat what's written there. We have 13 deputations and 30 individuals with us today. First of all, I'll give the floor to the deputations and individuals to express their views. Each will be given 3 minutes. After that, I'll invite members to raise questions or make comments. And then I'll invite the administration to give us succinct replies. All right. I now invite the Owners Corporation of Aurora Building, the chairman of the Owners Corporation. Chairman and members, individuals, good morning. I'm from Pok Fu Lam, Lawful Court. I'm from one of the 3 CBS. Now I'm the chairman of the Owners Corporation of Aurora Building. I'm Chang Yam Chan. We have completed the deeds of assignment and have set up an Owners Corporation, of which I'm the chairman. Our building was built in 1962 and then people moved in. So it's been 51 years since the building was built. I've been living in the building since the building was built. For the OC, there are 3 numbers. They cover 3 numbers, 1, 3, 5 of the road. I live on the 4th floor of Block 3. For each block, there are 4 stories, i.e. there are 12 households living there. Most of the occupants have been living there since the building was built, like myself. We are in our 80s. I am 84 years old now. Our major concern is that the building itself is already 51 years old and is dilapidated, and there is no lifts in the building. We have to climb up the stairs. I'm living on the 4th story, and there is a garage on the ground floor. That means I have to climb up 5 flights of stairs. I can still manage, but when I grow older, I'm sure I will not be as healthy. So myself and the residents are worried that our legs would not take us to the upper floors as time goes by. And my spouse is also in her 70s, 80s. Now, if one spouse has any problems with her legs, then life will be difficult. This is the common worry of the residents. Several years ago, a developer came to us and asked if we would like to have redevelopment. And the 3 CBS liaised with the developer enthusiastically. But then when the developer knew about the development condition, they were not interested. The requirement, the condition, according to the government, is that the place will be R1 zone, RC1 zone. And for redevelopment, only 3-story buildings can be built. So the number of stories will be reduced from 4 to 5 to 3, and there is a limit to the plot ratio. So the developer was not interested anymore, and the plan stopped. I heard from the CE that Mr. Cheng, I'm sorry, 3 minutes is given to each deputation. You have already spoken for 4 minutes. You have a written submission, right? Please submit the submission to the Secretariat and we'll read them. All right? I just want to suggest to the administration that for pork fu lamb, the moratorium should be launched as soon as practicable. And there are limits to private housing development, and but then some others are not subject to limits. For the Li Ka-shing College, they can build up to over 10 stories. And I hope the administration will go by public-private partnership. Now, please stick to the 3 minutes limit. If you can't finish within that, you can submit your written submission to the Secretariat. So just cut the long story short, all right? Next. 3 individuals would like to speak earlier because they have medical appointments or they are feeling ill. Mr. Yu K. Cheng, Wong Yu, and Cheng Lam K. Chen. Mr. Yu. Mr. Yu. Chairman, members, good morning. I'm Yu K. Cheng. I'm 92 years old. I'm living on the 5th story. And number 189 Tomei Road. My legs are not feeling well. I have difficulty climbing up the stairs. So I'm urging the administration to help me so that I will be given a place where there is a lift. That's all. Next, Ms. Wong Yi. Good morning, Chairman, members, Mr. Chen. I am here on behalf of the OC of Tomei Road, CBS. I would like to talk about the immoral acts of the colonial government and our demands. In 1956, the Chief Secretary under SSC number 9 said that the flat can't be transferred freely within the first 20 years, but there is no such restriction in the next 20 years. And in the 80s, when we made application for dissolution of the CBS, the administration changed the condition and make it mandate for the owners to pay land premium before the flat can be transferred. And there was no choice for the occupants. That's why we had to take up the changed conditions, these unfair conditions. In the late 80s and early 90s, many CBS were not happy with the land premium condition, and so they sought legal advice and hired a famous Crown Counsel and a barrister to represent us, who thought that under SSC 9 that the government had no right to bar us from transferring the flat after 20 years. And the councils represented us in a court case. As soon as the colonial government knew that we hired the counsel, before the trial took place in High Court, the government appointed our counsel to be the judge. It's very unfortunate the council took up the post as a judge. And so we had no choice then. Still, we had to pay for the work he did for us. We only had limited resources, which would not be able to cover legal fees. And we saw that the colonial government would mess things up for him. There was no choice for us but to settle the case. So I hope the SAR government can make things right for us. Coming to our demands. For the CBS blocks, they are scattered around Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, we lack land in the urban area. My flat is 1,600 square foot. But some people cannot live there any longer. In our OC, there are several flats left vacant. Since we have a shortage of land, how come the government doesn't think about resuming our flats so that we can have a win-win situation? The civil service will have an arrangement for us and the government can get its land. I hope our demands will be taken up. Thank you. And in the last row, Mrs. Chang. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, everyone. I'm 88 years old. I live alone. I live in Kau Pui Long Road, number 95, story 2. My husband passed away last year. I now have to rely on domestic helpers from Philippines. I'm wheelchair bound. So I have to grab the handrail when I climb up the stairs. I don't know when I will lose this ability. I'm really worried. Secondly, the land premium is very expensive. I know I can't afford the land premium. So I hope the administration will appreciate our difficulty and give us fair arrangement or remove the land premium condition. Thank you. I am Chang Lam K. Chen. Thank you. All right. Second row, we have the rights of redevelopment of CBS buildings. Concerned group, Mr. Lai Ting Heng. Good morning. The chief executive repeatedly said that housing demand and addressing housing needs is the priority of the administration. A year has passed. We can see that the government is having difficulty in addressing the problem. Even for major projects, it has to wait till over 10 years before it's realized. The CBS buildings amount to 90 square foot. And if we redevelop all of these flats, there will be 20,000 flats available. If the administration take this approach, within 3-4 years, there will be a large number of flats available to the public. That can address the housing need. Most of these blocks are scattered around the territory. They occupy premium location. And the government doesn't have to put in extra resources to make changes to the land. They can start redevelopment and expedite development and enhance the living environment. The Peter So, the new URA head, said that there should be expeditious redevelopment. The government should take up this mission. But the URA projects are mainly targeting subdivided flats. And the ground floor shop operators are the major obstacles in resuming land. So the URA projects take 2 to 3 years before it's realized. Still, we support the URA redevelopment projects to expedite redevelopment of all areas and to boost land resources. I urge the administration to resume the CBS blocks. For most of these blocks, they're over 50 years old. They may look fine on the surface. However, the interior is quite old. Over 90% lacks common facilities. There's no lift. So for the widowers of civil servants or the live-alone civil servants, they don't really have anyone to care for them. Vacancy rate 10%, 20%. and even higher than that, is actually a waste of public resources. It's not something we want. No, there is no subdivided flats in our blocks, and there's no ground floor shop operators, and the legal deed is quite simple. So redeveloping them is really simple. With few resources, the government can redevelop our blocks. So the administration should not opt for something difficult. Rather, it should make a decision and not focus on the land premium and start redeveloping our blocks and boost land resources and in turn improve the living environment of retired civil servants so that they can lead a dignified life in their twilight years. Next, incorporated owners of Po-on Building, Ms. Feng Shuk-yi. Good morning. On the 3rd of February this year, Mr. Paul Chen said in his blog that in redeveloping the CBS buildings, the government is open-minded. However, for removing the land premium, there should be sufficient justification. Several days ago, the government announced the $120 billion NENT project. For each relocation case, it amounts to $610,000. Whereas to remove the land premium and resuming our block, they will cost less. The government sold land for CBS development at half price of the land price, and we have to pay a loan for the next 20 years, including the interest. There is another condition, it's a binding condition, meaning the civil servants have to work until the normal retirement age before we can live in the block permanently. In other words, we spend our whole lives in exchange for the property. In 1956, according to government documents, there's a condition on land premium. This point has already been made by another judge petition, so I'm not going to repeat that. Some people say that the CBS block is for people to live in. It's not a property for speculation to make profit. I agree with that. But for the CBS blocks around the territory, they are over 50 years old. For my block, it's opposite Su Ok. Now Su Ok is under redevelopment. All the residents have left. The Su Ok is too old for people to live in. That's why the residents are relocated to new housing estates. Over 10 years ago, the administration even built lifts for residents in Su Ok, so the old people did not have to climb up the stairs. However, for CBS flats, we still stick to the 50s and 60s mode. There's no changes whatsoever. Now the civil servants were young, but now they're old, and the stairs is just so hard for them to climb. That's why there's a need to redevelop the block.
Next, the incorporated owners of Shin Ning Court, the chairman, Mr. Lee Tak-chin. Thank you. I think we all know that when people get old, their physical functions also decline, and it's really very, very hard for those of us living in blocks without lifts. For owners living in private buildings, they can lease out their own properties and then move to a building with lifts. For retirees living in the CBS blocks and their spouses, there's simply no way for them to improve upon the living conditions. According to these unfair terms imposed by the government, we cannot lease out our property. If we want to sell it, then we have to pay a very expensive premium. For example, in 2012, in North Point, there is a CBS flock. It was assessed to be worth $18 million, and the premium the government charges $17 million. The old person only has $1 million at his disposal. In 2011, there's a unit in Changsha. The surveyor assessed it to be worth $5.4 million, and the premium required would be is so much that the senior, the retired civil servant simply can afford it. So the children can only, rent another flat which is in a building served with a lift. Otherwise, they have to simply accept reality, and they simply cannot, for example, go out of the flat. I'm sure you've read about this from newspaper reports. The old lady, for example, injured her legs because she lived in a building without lifts, and because of the injury, she had to leave the flat, and the children have to, accommodate her in a building without a lift. Many of the retired civil servants simply have to stay in the flat. Even if you need to go, consult a doctor, they will need assistance. In the building where I live, there are 30 flats, but many of them are now vacant. Because the retired civil servants and spouses, they've not breached the CBS rules. However, the blocks are left vacant. So, chairman, members, and officials, I hope that you will, put yourself in our position. For those of us who've worked for the government for decades, for these retired civil servants and their spouses, please come up with a solution to help them. Thank you. Next. Mr. Ping Yu, Chairman, and honorable members. I'm Ping Yu. I also live in a CBS flat. So I'd like to say something about the so-called double housing benefit allegation. Actually, the so-called double housing benefit, well, the government monitors all civil servants. If a couple are civil servants, they're not. The two of them cannot apply for housing benefits at the same time. Whether it's the employer or the government, they cannot apply for housing benefits at the same time. Because of this policy, some civil servants who receive such housing benefits have resorted to all kinds of legal means, resulting in scandals. Or a couple who are civil servants will pretend to be divorced so that they can apply for double housing benefits, and this is because during the colonial period, the government simply did not come up with proper ways to rectify such problems, especially for the CBS buildings. In 1981, the government then launched a housing purchase subsidy scheme, while at the same time it did not review the Civil Servants Cooperative Building Society scheme. That is the so-called that is after the 20-year binding period, what would be the appropriate arrangements. So the problem have been dragging on. As some of the other deputations have pointed out, as they get old, the retired civil servants are getting weaker, and the building is even older, and eventually tragedies would happen. So I have a suggestion. I hope the government will make an effort to improve upon the existing mechanism so that we can proceed with the development of the CBS buildings. Regarding the payment of premium, I suggest that the government could perhaps consider the approach in Singapore, that is the policy regarding public housing. You are now only the civil servants you should consider the amount paid by the civil servants for such CBS flats plus interest, and if they paid such an amount, then the flats could be released for redevelopment. I am a C.K. Kwan. I'm a lawyer. According to the regulations by the government in 1956 for CBS, civil servants could form cooperatives, and they could pay half the upset price to be granted the land, and the members of the cooperative will use the site to build flats, and the government will provide them with a loan at an interest rate of 3.5% to be repaid over 20 years. Before the repayment of the loan, there will be severe strict restrictions on sale and mortgage, and the citizens can only use 1/4 of the salaries to make the repayment. There is no mentioning that civil servants have to pay a premium. It only said that they cannot, lease out or mortgage the flats before they repay the full amount. I think rules should be observed. The civil servants, pursuant to the notice, submitted the application. The restrictions imposed by civil servants was approved in a 1956 government notice. The general notice for 1959 would be binding on both parties and cannot be amended unilaterally. A simple spirit of contract. The civil servants who apply at the time, they were not well educated, they were not senior civil servants, they were not expatriate civil servants, they were not eligible to the housing benefits of the senior officials. That's why they applied for the CBS scheme. At the time, the colonial secretary, in his capacity, issued the notice by command. The notice number 9 did not mention that the junior civil servants were consulted. They did not take part in the drafting of the notice and the 5 conditions. Whereas now the general notice number 9 by the Secretary of Administration, I think it took government 5 years to work it out. In the 1952 notice, it said that the CBS scheme would need to be approved by the Secretary of State in the UK. At the time, the government departments at the time, including departments for land planning and the Secretary of Justice, also helped draft the regulation. That's why they should not have overlooked the important point that the members would have to pay a premium. And the notice was silent on how the premium should be repaid or how the amount should be calculated. 30 years later, the government did not ignore the objection of the member of the CBS, and then they issued in 1976 the conditions for the premium repayment. And the premium has shot up significantly in recent years, and as a result, rendering all these senior retired civil servants in a helpless position. Mr. Wong Kam Yi, Chairman. My name is Wong Kam Yi. I'm grateful for this opportunity to attend the hearing and to express my views, and I'd like to thank the Hong Kong SAR government for providing me with housing benefit during the many years that I work as civil servants. But as I get old, this has become a burden. The building I live in, the CBS building I live in, is more than 50 years old. At the time it was built, Hong Kong was suffering from a water shortage. There was a water rationing, and there was supply of water only once in 4 days. Many developers use seawater to mix the cement. As a result, some of the structures in the building are seriously rusted. The concretes are spalling, and as a result, the safety of the building was affected, and the lifespan of the building was shortened. As a result, we have to pay a lot of money for maintenance and repair. Furthermore, most of these cooperative buildings at the time they were built, they were not installed with lifts. As we get older, or when colleagues are suffer from injury, they have difficulties in walking up the stairs. Like Mr. Lee said, many of the units as a result are now vacant. Because of that, we've attempted to approach developers to either acquire our flats or for redevelopment so that the building will not collapse eventually. But because of the complicated procedures and all kinds of obstacles, the developers are not interested. And what is deterring the developer is the jump in the premium required, and the developer simply cannot work out the cost for acquisition. In 2010, in May, the government charged us $1.2 million odd for the premium. In 2012, April, it went up to $3.3 million. Within 2 years, it increased by 2.5 times. When the government set the figures for the premium, had it considered our ability to repay the premium. That's why over the last 20 years, we've approached 8 developers in succession and 2 surveyor firms. But because of all the above reasons, the negotiations simply failed. There have been one case in which we invited bids through a surveyor, and 39 developers were invited to put in bids, but eventually not a single bid came in. We only want to improve the poor living conditions, and we want to exchange the existing unit for a flat which is in a building which is served by a lift for the convenience of the senior colleagues who are now old. We just want a comfortable home. We're not really we're not really looking for a windfall. Next, Mr. Chairman Yield. Thank you. My father had worked for the government for more than 30 years before he died, and our whole family lived in a CBS building. My father passed away 20 years ago, and my mother is suffering from the Alzheimer's disease, and her health is deteriorating. It's very difficult for her to go around. She needs to go up and down the stairs with the assistance of others. And it takes her 20 minutes to simply walk up or come down the stairs. So for most of the time, she is homebound. Later on, we had no choice but to put her into a home for the elderly. While she was reluctant, but she had to accept that. My mother became very unhappy. Every time I visit her, she would cry when we leave, and she begged us to take her home. So her condition continued to deteriorate, and she passed away a few months ago. The situation of my mother is similar to the fate of my mother is similar to many of the examples we heard about. That is, even if you have a home, you can't return to your home. Of course, it's better for family members to look after the senior citizens, so they don't need to go to a home for the elderly. They can also help relieve the burden on the government. So I think to put these old people in a flat on a building which is served by a lift, it's much better because they can go around and so on. And that they will be able to live in dignity, and that they won't have to be like my mother, who had to be trapped at home all the time, as if we were actually abusing her. I don't want my life to end like my mother in a few years' time. The government is providing barrier-free access to the physically handicapped, but the government is charging us expensive, large amount of premium. If we want to, as a result, we cannot redevelop the CBS buildings, and we are forced to stay at home, and we can't, go out. So the government is actually, apparently, is breaching the laws against discrimination. Many other deputations have mentioned that the government is, charging unreasonable premium. I like to point out the government has no legal basis to charge the premium. The government has gone against the conditions it imposed earlier, and I hope that the SARG can rectify. The SARG is now looking for sites to build flats. I hope that it will rectify the mistakes made by the previous, colonial administration. Next, we have Mr. Roy Tam from Green Sense. Chairman and members, I note that some civil servants, friends who are civil servants are crying and they want to, move out of their flats, whereas people living in the Northeast NT don't want to be evicted from their homes. So I don't know whether the government should have some common sense. The Green Sense basically agreed that we should redevelop these CBS blocks. So we support certain policies of the government. Please note that. What we are against is the government's, robbing land away from people who don't want to move out. For example, those who live in Northeast NT. We are against government, trying to grab land in Qinghai and resulting in the peril of the white dolphins. So could the government give priority to these CDS blocks in place of Northeast NT and Qinghai? There are 200 odd such blocks. So if they were redeveloped and if you slightly relax the plot ratio, I'm sure this is much better than developing Northeast NT or going for reclamation. There is also now this issue of the requirement to pay a premium. I suggest the government should consider imposing certain conditions requiring the developers, for example, to dispose of the units that they redevelop at a specified price, or that they could, pay for the redevelopment. I think the hiccup now is the issue of the premium. And for the CBS buildings, of course, I am very much against the redevelopment to be led by the URA, because the buildings which we eventually build will end up as luxury apartments. The URA claims that they're selling it at market price, but eventually they would cost close to $20,000 per square foot. I hope the government want to increase land supply. Don't try to rob land from people. I think they should go for development on sites which are more reasonable. For the time being, I think the government should put a higher priority for developing these CBS sites on which the CBS blocks are located, because there's a lack of harmony in our community as the government is trying hard to grab land. The anti-inhabitants are not very happy, the green groups are not very happy because the white dolphins are at the risk of extinction. If you want to go for redevelopment, why don't you give this a chance? I think they deserve this chance. So to the government, break the red tape and give them this chance to redevelop the blocks. I hope this could replace the need to redevelop Northeast NT and reclamation at Qinghai. Next, we have Dr. Billy Lee Fok Pui. I am the president of the Charter Institute of Buildings. Our institute supports the government proposals to redevelop the CBS buildings. That is, by dissolving the cooperative, we can release the land so that the government could use it for development, or leave it to private, or go for private development. We also support the civil servants cooperatives to be disbanded as quickly as possible, given the huge market demand. And the government is now also looking for land everywhere.
For the CBS land, if you look at the lease terms, actually it's not a full land lease. So they do not have the full title. According to the documents, the title is about 1/3 to 1/6 of the market value. And thirdly, I'd like to suggest that with regard to the dissolution of the CBS, it should be reduced from 75% to slightly lower, so that there can be further developments, either being developed by the URA or the other developers, so that we can at least move one step forward. And the community as a whole should also have this option. That is, the URA would also have to adopt this demand-led approach. Well, this is feasible, and of course there are some details that need to be sorted out. But then the CBS concerned and the URA can work out the details. Fifthly, another option is for the administration to consider for the 1/3 or half land premium of the market value. Can you capitalize that? And if you capitalize that, then civil servants would then be able to sell that in the market, and then both private developers or private individuals will be able to acquire the full title of the whole lot for development. So that's my comment, or that my suggestion. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chang Tai-wai, Chairman and members, good afternoon. I'd like to state my views on the redevelopment of CBS sites. I'm in favor of further development because in the past we've managed to do it. That's because we have a very brilliant civil service, and the fact that they were able to buy the land and put up these flats, that's because they were civil servants. That's why I believe that with regard to the premium payment is really it would really amount to double benefit. In fact, many civil servants are also living in civil service quarters, and then after the retirement they are also eligible for public rental housing. I think that would amount to double benefit. I'd just like to share my views as an ordinary citizen with you. Well, I think we have to have housing strategy in Hong Kong, and as a young person, we would also have our own target. But then given the current situation, it's very difficult for us to climb the social ladder. For example, in Cheung Sha Wai, if I want to buy a flat of 15 years old, and if it's 200 to 300 square feet, and if I have to do the repayment in 15 years, then every month I'll have to pay about $10,000 setting aside the down payment. So the chief executive said that he would be fighting for every piece of land, and then he would try to resolve the problem by putting up more flats. But then last week they announced the anti-northeast plan, and back in the 1990s they already started the study, and back in 1998 they already incorporated that in the territory-wide strategic review. But then after the announcement of the plan, many political parties asked them to withdraw the plan, and in the face of this, the administration is still bracing its way and is still insisting on this plan. How come the administration is not prepared to change its mindset? Why is it that it's going for the more difficult one instead of the more easy one? All right, actually, in insisting on the anti-northeast plan, there will be more difficulties, and therefore I hope that the administration will consider this view, because many of these CBS sites are in the prime locations in the downtown area, and that's why traffic-wise it's also very convenient. The size is also very large. That's why the housing society or the URA should come in, and they should resume such sites, and then they will be able to build more flats, so that for the aspiring young people they'll be able to have more chances to buy their own flats, so that they can have their own homes. And then I think that would also ease the atmosphere in the community. I hope that the Development Bureau will consider my view, and also others who are young people. Thank you. Next, the Owners Incorporated for 93 to 101 of Kau Pui Long Road. Mr. Lau Kem Fai. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to stress that for the CBS flats and also the civil servants living in these flats, we have been law-abiding citizens, and all we are trying to get is our own flat. On the 23rd of June, there was a preparatory meeting, and I was pleased to learn that well, even for the convener of the meeting, he has already made it clear that we are not trying to make a fortune out of the flat that we own. And some people are querying whether or not we are getting double housing benefit. I'd like to say that this is not true. In fact, from the very beginning, we have only owned one flat for our own occupation. And indeed, back in those years, the reason why the administration has offered this at lower premium and also low interest loan, that's because they like us to own our own homes. We are grateful to that. We are grateful for that. But then if we have to pay the land premium in order to get redevelopment, then it means that we'll have to pay a very hefty price for that. And it's so hefty that we would not be able to afford it. And it's also unreasonable because well, the lease terms are quite a departure from the reality, and it's also an unequal treaty. That's why for the so-called double housing benefit, even if that's true, it's not enjoyed by us, it's enjoyed by the administration, and also the benefit is not offered unconditionally. Actually, as many of us have said, this is, there would be bundled services. Some people have not been able to change to better jobs, and also our health. Our formal retirement age is 55, and you will also have to understand that back then, the health conditions might not be that good. Not everybody would be able to enjoy longevity. And also, there is this restriction that only civil servants would be allowed to live in those flats. So that's the condition. And even if we have to pay premium, there is no way that we can afford it at the current value, and we cannot just opt for that offered by A or B, and it's not just a numbers game, and you cannot just ask for astronomical price from us. And thirdly, please understand that back then, if you look at the circumstances, even in the private sector, most of the flats were rather large, and it's only now that we have nuclear families, and therefore the flat size would be smaller. And actually, I've also done some check with the other flats. If you pay $30,000, then you would be able to buy some 700 square feet flat. But then they had a lot more flexibility than us. And also, when you buy flats, of course, you would also like to buy a good one. It's not just us. And some people also said that your flat might be valued at $10 million. What I think is, because we own a flat, and if my flat, I'd rather that it's value only at $5 million, because for $10 million or $5 million, in any event, I'll have to stay in a flat. It's not meaningful at all. But then if it's valued at $10 million, then there might be inflation, and then for a $20 breakfast, it might now cost $50. So our living standard has actually come down. And also, given the current impasse, what's the purpose of it? Why don't we just seize the opportunity so that we can achieve a win-win situation for all? Thank you. Next, Chow Yu-hong. Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, everyone. I live in Khao Pui Long Road, 187, third floor. For this flat, we bought it in 1960. So we've stayed there since 1960, and the building is already over 50 years old. What I'd like to say is, I think a lot has been said about these flats. I'd just like to share my plight with you as one of the aggrieved owner. I'm chronically ill. I've had 2 cardiovascular operations and 2 prostate cancer operations and 2 colon cancer operations. Fortunately, I have managed to survive after all those operations. The fact is, because our flat or building is already very run down, and at the time when my health conditions were bad, I did not want to go out at all, because I had to walk up a slope, and for every 4 steps I had to stop, because I lived on the 3rd floor. Then there would be 40 steps, and you can imagine I'll have to take very frequent breaks before I could get to the floor that I live on. And if there had been lifts or elevators, then it would have been a lot better. And my wife's leg is also not well, and if members can help us to redevelop that building, that would be very good indeed. Thank you. Next, Lau Ken Ming. My name is Lau Ken Ming. I live in Shan Road, 4th floor of number 318. Because I'm living on the 4th floor, because it's an old tenement block. It's already over 50 years old. Last year, my wife had a fall, and she is not able to climb up the stairs, and every time when she has to go for a follow-up consultation, we'll have to call an ambulance to carry her up and down. And given the age of our building, I really hope that the administration will not require us to pay such hefty premiums. And actually, the premiums are going up all the time. You're talking about a doubling or more than doubling of the premium every year. So you will have to be sympathetic with the plight of these aging civil servants. Please do redevelop our buildings as soon as possible so that we'll be able to enjoy the rest of our life. Next, Mr. Lai Cho Tek. Chairman, members, good afternoon, everyone. I'm representing 187 of Khao Pui Long Road. So I'd like to comment on the administration's handling of CBS buildings. We have heard many elders living in CBS buildings and their plights. And well, earlier on, when I went out to the streets, I can see that there were a lot of footbridges, and the administration also installed a number of lifts, and that would also make life a lot easier for those of us who have mobility problems. And the administration is also using a lot of resources to improve the public toilets, in particular the toilets for the disabled, and they are actually retrofitting them with more facilities. I also hope that the administration would also be doing the same for those living in CBS buildings. I hope that you can also consider their plight, because in retrofitting those public toilets and footbridges with lifts, I think is very costly. And there is also a law requiring the administration to complete the installation of toilets for the disabled before a certain date. So I think they are actually rushing to get those works completed before the deadline. All right, what we are talking about here is the CBS buildings. Well, with regard to the sites of the cooperative societies, in fact, Hong Kong does have a shortage of land. And on the one hand, you're actually identifying sites for housing development, and invariably you've met with opposition and dissenting views. And for some of the existing sites, well, we have so many CBS sites available, and if the administration can use them, then within a few years' time, you would be able to put up a large number of flats, and that would also help solve the problems that we are facing now, that is high property prices, because we understand that many young people are actually finding it difficult to buy their own homes because prices are so high that they is beyond their reach, and therefore by redeveloping CBS sites, that would help ease the pressure, and also that would also help ease the grievances that many are feeling. And also, we expect that some 80% of those who are living in these CBS buildings would be in favor of adopting the URA approach in redeveloping them. At least 40 CBS would be willing to accept the URA terms in redeveloping CBS buildings, and in some cases there might be 100% consent. So we hope that the administration will understand the plight of the civil servants, and also on the spirit of cooperation, we can reach a consensus, achieving a win-win situation for all. Thank you. Next, Ms. Koo. I'm living in one of the CBS buildings on Hong Kong Island. I live in the 5th floor, and a few years ago, my husband had a stroke, and therefore he had difficulty going in and out of our flat, because every time when he goes out, he will have to walk down 76 steps before he can come down to the ground floor. And that's why, as far as possible, he would try to avoid going out, and only when he has to go out for follow-up consultation, we would call the ambulance to help him come down the steps. So every time other than going for follow-up consultation, he would be stuck at home. And therefore, he is very depressed, and his health conditions are also deteriorating. And even if we want to do some shopping or buy some grocery items, then people would charge us some $100 for carrying the items for us or doing the delivery for us. And because we have been living there since the 60s when it was first completed, and since it was very much a jerry building, and if you look at the ceiling of our flat, it's been affected. And every time when there is a downpour, there would be water seepage, and also on the wall there would also be water seeping in. And this is a picture that we have taken. And after many times of repair, it's not working because the external wall is really very flimsy. And we are also concerned that to continue to live there might not be safe because the building might collapse. But then we simply cannot afford to buy a flat outside, because if I buy a flat outside, then I'll have to pay a very hefty premium for this flat, and for whatever I can get, I would not be able to buy a flat of 300 square feet of over 20 years old. So please do understand those of us who are weak and frail and old, and please waive the land premium so that we'll be able to afford to buy a flat which is equipped with a lift. Next, Madam Liu Ka-heng, Mr. Lau, Chairman, and members, good afternoon. All right, I live in Saiwan Ho's CBS. I'm living on the ground floor flat. And before the CBS site, well, we used to have a rock hill right in front of us, and subsequently the rock hill was removed and a road was built instead. And since then, buses and minibuses would be coming down from the housing estate from the top of the hill, and then they would pass through our front door, and then they would go up to the flyover to the highway, and as a result, it becomes very dusty. And also for the overnight buses, and during night time, half an hour they would be coming. They will be passing by at a half an hourly interval. So it's like sleeping on the street, because day in, day out, and day and night there would be buses passing through, and there would also be illegal parking right at our door front. And the vehicles would never follow the advice of the administration. They would not turn off their idling engine, and therefore for the emissions, exhaust gas, and also for the dust that would be generated by the passing by vehicles, they would come into the flat, and as a result we will have to close our windows throughout the year, and air circulation is very poor, and we also suffer from respiratory problems, and also the structure of the building is also very run down, and in the kitchens and toilets there was spalling of the concrete. Fortunately, nobody was there when it took place, or else there would have been casualties. And also because the rooftop has been subject to inclement weather, and during torrential downpour, for the residents on the 5th floor, there would be serious water seepage, and they will have to use buckets to carry the water. And because of the water seepage problem, repair and maintenance works have been very difficult, and one of the households on the 3rd floor would have to put up a wooden panel in order to seal off the water seepage, so that the floor would not be wet.
An elderly lady living on the 5th floor has asthma. When she has to go up and down the stairs, she has to spend an hour down the stairs. That's why she doesn't go out now. She stays at home all the time. We are retired civil servants. We can't pay the high maintenance fee. So we can only ask developers to redevelop our flats, but we have to pay the hefty land premium if that's the case. However, if we allow this situation to continue, then the building will be a kind of dangerous building. Will the government help us then? Next, Ms. Lam Yin Ling, good morning. I am a member of the CBS in Shening Road. My husband has passed away, but he was a civil servant, and I took over his place as a member of the CBS. 30 years ago, when we were about to get married, we wanted to buy our own flat. And in Kwun Tong, it costs you $90,000 to get a 300 square foot flat in Kwun Tong. But then we have this CBS offer. That's why we took up the latter offer. Now the nearby property price kept rising. However, for our flat is in a dilapidated situation. We have to spend a hefty amount on a maintenance fee. We regret. How come we did not purchase the flat in Kwun Tong? If we had done that, we would be very rich by now. For the retired civil servants living in the block that in their 80s or 90s, without a lift there, it's very inconvenient for them to go in and out. I'm the secretary of the OC, so I have to go up and down the stairs to collect the management fees. Even for myself, I think it's rather difficult to climb up the stairs. How come the government doesn't show some sympathy for the elderly retired civil servants? I hope there will be expeditious redevelopment. Thank you. Next, Ms. Mok Pei-wah. Good morning. Good afternoon, Chairman and members. I'm also from the Shanning Road CBS. Because of the time constraint, I'm going to cut a long story short. I come here because I hope the administration will show some care and will follow it through. This shouldn't stop at one deputation meeting only. A whole generation has been waiting for an answer. My father had already passed away. Still, the problem is with us. So I am really anxious to see the problem solved. The living environment is really unsatisfactory. We've been living in the flat for decades. And after living there for 3 decades, we found that the situation is rather dilapidated. At the beginning, there was no building in front of us. We could see all the way in front of us. But now we are surrounded by buildings. And there are roads, traffic on the ground floor. It's so dusty, we have to clean the house several times a day. We dare not open the windows because of the dusty atmosphere. It's also a nuisance at night. Many deputations have told you there is no lift. It's very inconvenient. My mother is ill. After living there for 30 years, she has a hard time climbing up the stairs, even though I'm living on the 3rd floor. She pants when she climbs up the stairs, so if it's not for consulting the doctor, she doesn't go out. In the past 10 years, we have to repair the flat without government subsidies. We have to repaint the flat, and we have to repair the flat inside and outside. We are just in the junior grade. We don't have much money. We almost spend all our pension on this. Now, there are these schemes for inspecting the windows and the building. How can we pay the fee for these schemes? The previous generation of my family spent their whole life in Hong Kong in building a family here, and they served the public. And I will continue with this mission. I'll continue to serve the public. But I also ask the administration to resume our blocks and relocate us to a building with a lift. Many people in the block are living alone. They are taken care of by a domestic helper only. So please follow this matter up and solve it. Next, Mr. Sham Shuping. Good afternoon. My points have already been made by many deputations. I'm not very eloquent, so I'll skip it. Next, Ms. Tong Kam Lan. Honorable members, I'm Tong Kam Lan, living in Shining Road, 326, third floor. I'm the second generation of the flat. I have to take care of my father. That's why I'm living in the flat. Now my parents have passed away. I want to tell members my difficulty. Earlier on, the external wall was repaired. I'm a widow and I had to borrow money for the repair work. Now 5 years have passed and now I have to repair the area again. And I can't borrow any more money. Now the external wall is a problem. For the interior, the sitting room, the corridor and also the bedroom, very often there is spoiling problem. Sometimes the spoiling concrete is so large that it amounts to 12 by 12 and it's as large as a bowl. The building was built with seawater, so it's not exactly steady. When I wake up, I look at the ceiling, look at the floor to see if there has been any fallen concrete. If there's none, I would be very grateful. When my mother was alive, a domestic helper was hired to take care of her. She was 98 years old, and the helper did not want to take up the job anymore, so I had to send her to an elderly home. After my parents passed away, they left me this flat. The will states that me and my 7 siblings could live there, and I'm simply there to take care of the flat. I have a roof over my head. It seems that I don't have any worries. However, it is a kind of nightmare. The flat is like a tumor. It's dangerous. There's concrete falling down, so I feel that my safety is threatened. So I urge members to come up with methods to solve this problem for me. Next, Ms. Yu Po Shu. Honorable Mr. Lau and members, deputations, Yu Po Shu. I'm one of the stakeholders of the CBS. I wanted to look at the situation by examining the win-win situation and lose-lose situation. Lose-lose situation for the CBS blocks across the territory. They amount to over 900,000 hectares. There is internet facilities and water supply, electricity supply. They occupy prime area in the urban district. Now the government lacks land. If the blocks are not resumed, the government is actually wasting resources. For the owners, we have to tolerate the poor living situation, and we have to climb up the stairs every day when we go out. We simply rely on a small amount of pension. That's not enough to pay for the rising maintenance fees. 10 years down the road, I'm sure these blocks will be dangerous. If we have a block collapse like the block in Ma Tau Wai, I don't know what the government will say to the public. Now, if the plot ratio is set at 7 and with this hectare, with the size of the area, there will be 60 $2.37 million, and there will be new flats of 3.6 million for the URA, and 6,000 households will stand to benefit. The redevelopment of Haiti Street and Springfield Street in Wan Chai, the developers stand to gain a lot. And I'm sure members, you are better at figures than me. So please balance the advantages and disadvantages, and you then will come up with your own conclusion. Next, Mr. Lee Chen-po. Good morning. I'm from the CBS in Shening Road. My parents passed away over the years. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to talk about my views as the second generation inheriting the flat. I urge the administration to appreciate the difficulty of the members and start redevelopment of the CBS flats, so that those inherited the flat will enjoy a modern living environment with good qualities and facilities, and to alleviate our burden in terms of maintenance fee. In the 60s, many CBS flats were built, and many of these blocks are in a prime location. But in terms of the living environment, the blocks can't keep up with modern buildings. They may be spacious. However, they are over 60 years old, so they can hardly be called some sort of advantage. There's the problem of title and the maintenance and repair fees. There's no fire safety insurance covered, and there's no lift. There's structural problem. A landowner sees this as a burden, and as time goes by, the burden will be heavier. In the past 10, 20 years, some civil servants, including my father, fought for redevelopment of the CBS flats, and their attempts for that were destroyed. We asked for redevelopment not because we want profit. We just want to improve our living environment so that we can have lifts. 10 years later, I'll be retiring, and by then the flat will be 70 years old. I am sure the spalling problem will be more serious. The structure will be even worse. I ask myself, will I be the next one asking for some help? In redeveloping the CBS flats, the government stands to gain. It can speedily get hold of urban land, and the cost of redeveloping the flats will be 30% lower than any NT project. And it can also enjoy advantages in terms of allocating social resources and allocating resources to those needy. And at last, the government can also help the civil servants to serve the public in providing them with a good flat. Mr. Wang Sam-chun. Good afternoon, members. I'm Wang Sam-chun. I live in Tai Hang Road, number 83-111. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents there. I'm not here to fight for benefits. I'm just asking for fair treatment. For Causeway Bay OZP SH69, we read the plan carefully, and we found that the TPB and the planning department in handling the zoning. They simply took the 4 CBS in Causeway Bay and put the 4 CBS sites into Wangfeng Tai. Let me talk about the background of Wangfeng Tai. Wangfeng Tai is in 57 to 81 Taihang Road. It's just next to our CBS site. However, we are two completely separated areas. The Plans D and TPB also made some mistakes. As H610 and 47/2001. Gazette. If you compare the two documents, you find that there are major differences. The 4 CBS sites are in the OZP. However, the 4 CBS sites are not in the Gazette. So we think the TPB treated the 4 CBS sites as the area of Wangfeng Tai. So without prior knowledge, our sites are being planned. This is the dictatorship of the TPB. It will cause negative impact and is unfair to us. And in turn will cause obstruction in redevelopment. The OZP information should be in line with the information in Gazette. Otherwise, the Gazette should not be endorsed by the CE. So I urge the administration to put forward solutions. I'm sure with concerted monitoring, the problem will be resolved. And I wish members good health and a good life. Next, Ms. Lai Yok Kim. Good afternoon, Chairman and Member. I'm from To Kun-sun, CBS. I want to talk about my personal views and I want to serve a mission. The residents in the blocks are old and it's not convenient for them to go about. They've written some letters for me to read them out. So may I have some time to read out the letters? For my personal views, some people say,
as members have pointed out, our cooperative flats are located in prime urban sites. And people are saying that we're going to make a windfall. What I wish to say is that this is our only flat in which we live in. If I own 2 or 3 properties, of course, I hope that property prices would be high, and then so that I would make a profit if I dispose of it. Not to say that I can sell my flat for $10 million. Even for several million, I would be able to really enjoy my life. However, well, this is the only flat that we own. Even if we have the money, I would still need to find, a suitable alternative flat. Would your letters be too long? Otherwise, you can simply, pass on those letters to a secretariat. Yes, there is one in which I would like to read out in particular. To whom it may concern, I'm Mrs. Tam Lochiwei. I'm 92 years old. I live in Chikong Street, 52A, 2nd floor. Ever since my children and grandchildren have emigrated and my husband has passed away for many years, I have been living alone here in this unit. Since I'm getting old, I often need to go to government clinics for consultation. I'm also I cannot go about freely. I have to ask the government, auxiliary medical services to help me. Therefore, I like to ask the government to expedite the acquisition of the CBS units so that old people living there will be able to find suitable alternative accommodation. I think this is a letter from Mrs. Tam Law Chi Man. Please pass on those letters to our secretary, and they will be circulated to our colleagues in the government. Next, Mrs. Chang To Ping. Thank you, members. I live in Po On Street. My flat is in a very dilapidated state, and I have actually spent a lot of money on renovation already. I'm 88 years old, and it's not very easy for me to go up and down the stairs. And the flat is in a very poor state already. I've had carried out several repair and renovation works, but still it's in a very unsatisfactory condition. And I have photos here to show that the ceiling is already in a very poor condition. And anyway, the whole flat is in a very dilapidated state. When the building was built, at the time, they were built with cement mixed with seawater. And as a result, the cement is spoiling all the time. And now, my son is using cellophane tapes to simply, to hold the cement, but still the water is seeping down to the buckets below. We use biscuit tins or buckets. So long as there's water dripping, we will need to use them to hold the water. We've actually repaired the rooftop a few times, but even the technicians told us that it's not going to help. So it's in such a poor state. And now my legs are getting weak, and I find it very difficult to climb up the stairs. So the most serious problem is that when there's heavy rain, there's water leakage, and we have to place buckets all over the sitting room to simply hold the water. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Chang Yuk Kwan. Good morning. I'm the Deputy Chairman of the Owners Incorporation of the Po On CBS building. I'm a retired civil servant. I live on the 4th floor of a CBS block. Today I'm not going to talk about the unequal, treaties. In the 1960s, I wanted to serve the people of Hong Kong and did my part. I took part joined a uniformed society to help the disaster relief and to help the public. In 1969, I joined, and another a team of volunteers, and together with supervisors, we trained many youngsters. We took them to different parts of the New Territories, and we walked through many of the hiking trails in the New Territories. We actually won a lot of commendation for the training that we did. Over the decades, our team had trained many elites in our society. However, if I look at my own legs, they're getting weaker and weaker. The doctor told me that I have to be on medicine and painkillers for the rest of my life. In April and May, I couldn't even stand on my own, and had to stay at home. And after a lot of struggle, I consulted a doctor. When I returned home, I saw the 77, steps, up to my flat. I was really worried, and I could see my future. Chairman and government officials and honorable members, I hope that you can help us, the old people like us, to build a platform so that we can still continue to live with some dignity for the rest of our lives, so that we don't have to pay more even if we need to buy a can of LPG. And when we need delivery, we have to tell people that live on the 5th floor of a building whether to live, and they have to make us pay a surcharge. This platform should help us to be able to return to our home, and also to resolve the problem that many of these units are left vacant. Next, Ms. Chung Wing. I live in Ho Man Tin, Princess Margaret Road. In June last year, my neighbor told me that, Mrs. Wong, we now have to pay $5.8 million of premium. I said, this is ridiculous. Why? Because in March 2010, I also made inquiries, and we were only required to pay $3.2 million. And after 2 years, it went up to $5.35 million. For us, who are junior civil servants, how can we afford that? It's really angry just to hear the amount. Does it mean that over the last 2 years, property prices have gone up? Or is it because our flat is really worth a lot of money? Or could it be the lands department had did the sums wrong? Well, these are the questions on my mind. In my company, a colleague said, Miss Chair, you're going to make a windfall. Your flat has 1,500 square feet. If you could sell it for $10,000 per square foot, you're going to get 50 million. I said, that's not the case. Only the government will stand to gain. I only own this single flat in which I live. If I have another flat and I sell this one, I will be make a profit. However, since my flat is getting old and there's structural problems, and if I want to sell it, the government is charging me $9 million as premium, in the form of premium. How can I afford it? Well, wouldn't you agree that it is the government which will stand to gain? Furthermore, originally the flat was offered to us as a housing benefit. After we've taken this option, we're not allowed to lease out the flat. And then the government simply left us alone. If you live here, you will be responsible for the repair and maintenance and the management. Well, after we've lived there for more than 50 years, and the problems with the building, we all know that when a building gets old, you get all kinds of problems like spoiling and so on. And we don't want to live there. We want to, to switch to a better environment. You're going to charge us this premium. So, isn't it true that it's always the government which would stand to gain? Well, finally, I hope the government will resolve the problem of facing the civil servants who are aging as soon as possible. Next, Ms. Ng Sao Ping. I'm also a member of the Lam To building cooperatives. Our building is 53 years old, although there's a lift, but the lift has been used for 53 years. It's not only getting old, it's actually a potential risk when we ride on this lift. 80% of the residents are senior citizens. Many of them live alone. They simply don't have the strength to maintain, an acceptable living environment. Our next generation also don't want to live in such buildings. I don't want to tell you about the impact of the Princess Margaret Road flyover. The government said it wants to improve the living environment of the residents of Hong Kong. Why is it we have to accept a deteriorating condition? Aren't civil servants a part of our community? Well, they have once served the community. Shouldn't they deserve better treatment? We are loyal, we are law-abiding citizens, we paid our rates, but the government simply, do not, take us seriously. The government said that they've given us this housing benefit, but actually our parents pay for it. My father joined the government in 1956. He served in the government for 30 years. He retired in 68. After he had retired, he had to make the mortgage payment for another 15 years. So this is even worse. If we talk about housing benefit, this is even worse than government quarters. So I think redevelopment is the best solution to our problem. We've been discussing with developers over the years, but the premium the government is asking is very unreasonable. Over the course of 3 years, it has jumped from 4 million to more than 10. And every time we were asked to put in an application in 4 months' time, and we're only given 3 weeks to decide what we accept. Otherwise, the deal would be off. If we wanted to appeal, we have to first pay several tens of thousands of dollars, and we didn't know how long we have to wait, and we were told that probably our appeal would not be entertained. And so all these terms are really appalling. Even the developers are frightened by the premium. Nobody would like to negotiate with us, and now we're simply unable to resolve this problem on our own, and we hope that the government will help us. Next, Mr. Cheng Xiu-wah, Chairman and members. I live in Nga Chin Wai Road. I live in a CBS building there. Members will see that many of the retired civil servants, the spouses speaking. I really respect these senior citizens who are in the 80s and 90s. They've told us about their plight, and they have this strong aspiration. And there's an urgent need to help them. They were the first generation of civil servants after the war, and they spent their whole life, serving the community. Hong Kong has become so prosperous because they've actually, made a contribution. But can they really, live in happily in retirement? I think that is obvious to all. The old people find it difficult to go up and down the stairs. One of my neighbors had suffered from fall, and she no longer could go up the stairs anymore, and she need to go to the doctor, and she needs assistance. And so I think it's like they're trapped in a cul-de-sac. So why is that the case? It's because they cannot dispose of their flats. As the building gets older and older, and they can't mortgage the units. A few years ago, some developers were interested, but now, because of the premium issue. For example, in 2011, in October of that year, I applied for a payment of premium, and the Lands Department quoted $7.6 million. That's the amount I needed to pay. So it would mean that I have to dispose of my flat at a very high price, and that would scare away any potential buyers. In November last year, I was told that the premium I need to pay would be $14 million, which means I will have to sell my flat for, close to $20 million. So you work on a 40% basis, $80 million premium. So it means that our flats are really worth a lot of money, but where would we be able to find a buyer? Even the property developers would not be willing to acquire our units. As a result, the civil servants are now trapped. So what can they do? They thought that they could live happily in retirement, or that they can, cash in by selling in the unit, but now they simply cannot do it. And furthermore, they have to pay a lot of money for maintenance, repair, rent, and so on. I'd like to ask this question. The Lands Department would say we have 4 months to put in an application to pay the premium. When you have a buyer will approach you again, you will put in another application, then you have to pay for 8 months. Does it mean that I tell the buyer that I'm going to charge you that much, but then it would depend on, how much a premium government will charge us in 8 months' time? Do you think I will be able to find a buyer in this case? Next, we have Engineer Dr. Lawrence Poon from the Institute of Surveyors. Many of the deputations have told us about the quality of the living environment and the premium they have to pay, and I really am sad to hear that. I've actually visited many of the old people in such conditions, and I really can empathize with the situation. To improve the quality of life and in order to provide more flats, I see no reason why we should not support the redevelopment of these CBS blocks or buildings. However, the position of our institute is this: we understand the government's difficulties. Say, if tomorrow the government announces that we will now change the premium policy, which includes lowering the premium or changing the method of calculation or even waiving the premium payment altogether, I believe you cannot guarantee that some members of the public will take to the streets to object, saying that the government is now paying these sites to developers at attractive prices. The government may not have this intention, but I'm worried that given the political climate, this may happen. Putting aside the question of collusion, I visited the senior citizens living in private buildings, and I was sad to find that they're living in very poor conditions. Many of them have difficulties in moving around, and they live in buildings where they live. If we can waive the premium, then the buildings could be, the sites on which these buildings are could be redeveloped. But then we're worried that other people will say, I'm also living in 50-year-old building. The government should also give us waive the premium so that we expedite the redevelopment. So in order to help the civil servants, other than saying that the government should change its policy, so because we want to provide more land for housing development, and that we want to make better use of resources, so that for these civil servants who have but I think it's very difficult for the government to really change its policy. So we have attempted to find out whether or not we can come up with some justifications that it shouldn't we treat all private buildings in a consistent manner. So do we have any grounds to help these people? So in terms of the premium payment, I mean, since they pay only 50% of the premium, is it the case that they have to, pay back the other 50%? Well, in the case of the HOS flats, that is a different story. Very often, the flats you live in is part of the, conditional service. The civil servants have, for example, subsidies for them to make the mortgage payments. They may collect $200,000 in a year and more than $2 million in 10 years. That could be more than half the property value. So if they need to dispose of these flats, they have to pay back the premium. But that's not the case as part of the conditions of service for civil servants, because the members of cooperatives have forsaken the other housing benefits. In exchange, they get half the premium waive. So if they were to return the site, for all those who are on housing benefits, upon their retirement, if they sell the flats, if they have to repay the benefits that they have received previously, I don't think that is necessary. Even waiving the premium doesn't mean that we are benefiting civil servants. Furthermore, secondly, increasing the plot ratio. I don't think that whenever we increase the plot ratio, one will need to pay a premium. With the change of time, if the redevelopment value has changed, if the plot ratio is 5 now, 3 now is 5. Are you speaking for the government, or are you speaking as an individual?
So who are you representing? I'm representing the Institute of Surveyors. All right. All right, the Institute of Surveyors has a lot of concerns. All right, just listen to that. And if you have any comments, you are welcome to respond to his comments. And also, Chairman, please restrict everybody to 3 minutes because every deputation is only given 3 minutes. Please do make sure that he can only speak for 3 minutes. I'm trying to come up with ways to help society members in order to change that. You've been given 5 minutes already. You've been given more than 5 minutes. Yes, we have to go by the rule. All right, if you think that what I'm saying, well, under the present policy, if they can pay less premium or if they can be granted a waiver, then that's fine. All right, I'll stop. I'll try to help the society members in private to see if they can get the government to allow them not to pay any premium. So I'll be trying to help them after the meeting. All right. Of course, I find it regrettable if we are not able to help them. That is to strive to get a premium waiver from the administration. Next, ADPL, Mr. Chan Tak-sing. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. I'm speaking for the ADPL, and I've also heard a lot of deputations speak about the plight of these society members. And other than feeling sad, I'm also very angry because very rare can we find civil servants are being abandoned by their government after their retirement, and they are not even able to enjoy a happy retirement life by having a stable accommodation. Actually, with so many members here, and yet the Bureau Director, Mr. Paul Chan, is not here. He doesn't show any respect for civil servants, and the ADPL supports their demand, and we have also submitted a document to this council, and is supported by all members of the council. Indeed, other than former civil servants, the side effect of releasing more land for housing development would also be very important. And while we are having this shortage of housing land, these sites would provide a golden opportunity for redevelopment. And yet, regrettably, still we are having non-professionals in charge of the Development Bureau. All right, Mr. Paul Chan, given his background, he was a former lawmaker. He's also someone from the accounting sector. All right, he would do all the calculations. He would say that civil servants have enjoyed a lot of benefits while they were in service, and therefore I think they are doing all sorts of calculations. But then when it comes to community planning, urban design, and also for former civil servants, how they can enjoy their retirement life, very little has been mentioned about that. And for many of these elderly civil servants, not many of them have to move out. They will continue to stay in those flats. On what basis have they said that? This is really puzzling. And up till now, if we continue to drag our feet, all right, we're talking about having these civil servants have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in the repair and maintenance of the buildings, and if they continue to drag their feet, then even for the next or the second generation of these civil servants, they would pass away. So no wonder some people are saying that would these people in charge of our government, what can we expect of it? Next, Hong Kong Professionals and Senior Executives Association, Mr. Angus Wong. Thank you, Chairman. The Hong Kong Professionals and Senior Executives Association, with regard to the CBS redevelopment, we'd like to put forth the following comments. Number one, we agree that for the CBS buildings, they have a lot of potential for redevelopment. We have over 200 dissolved or undissolved CBS buildings, and they are already over 50 years old. Most of them would be located in North Point, Hong Kong, Sai Wan Hall. They are prime urban locations, and the plot ratio is about 3 to 4, and they are only 4 to 5 stories tall when compared to the adjoining buildings which are close to which are high rises, and therefore we believe that there is tremendous redevelopment potential, and if they can be put up for redevelopment, and if the plot ratio can be increased, then we'll be able to increase the number of flats by many times, and that would also help ease the current short supply of housing. And we also estimate that with a flat size, with an average flat size of about 500 square feet, we can have about 20,000 flats, which are many times more than the current 5,000 flats. And therefore, if you look at the desire of the present owners in redeveloping those sites, many of these buildings have yet to be put up for redevelopment. That's because of various reasons. Well, despite the fact that they have a tremendous redevelopment potential, but then if they want to make any changes, that would give rise to unnecessary misunderstanding and dispute. We therefore suggest that the administration should conduct in-depth studies and analysis of the situation, including the current state of use and also the desire of the existing owners in redevelopment and also the development potential of these sites, so that more data can be collected. Summarizing what I've said, the P&SE Association is of the view that for the former CBS sites, because the plot ratio was on the low side, and also given that these sites are located in premium locations, there is a very high redevelopment potential, and therefore some of the owners, because of the prospective high maintenance costs and also the lack of communal facilities, there is a high motivation behind them for to go for redevelopment, and therefore the administration should conduct in-depth study on the current state of the buildings in order to review the current policy, and also they should also come up with feasible solutions. Thank you. Next, Mr. Ricky Orr from the Democratic Party. Thank you, Chairman. Well, for the CBS sites, it started in 1952, and that provided flats for the then civil servants, and land was offered at concessionary terms, and cooperatives were set up to build those buildings, and a total of 238 such societies were established, and 77 have been dissolved, and so 160 plus are still in place, and most of these are located in prime locations in the urban area, and some 61 are still here, and most of these buildings would be 5-story tall, without lifts and without ground floor shop premises, and the plot ratio would be on the low side, and the DP is of the view that after the redevelopment, well, the plot ratio would be somewhat higher, and also the number of flats can also be many times of the existing number, and therefore more flats can be accommodated, and that would also help ease the current housing problem. That's why the DP is now making 5 suggestions. Number 1, the administration should understand the society members to see if they'd like to have redevelopment instead of forcing them to redevelop, and the administration should consult the society members to understand the situation and respect their wishes. And number 2, well, given the fact that society members will have to pay a premium before they can get full ownership, and that would be in line with the fair principle or fairness principle, but then you will also have to understand their plight, because often at time we're talking about huge premiums, and many of them cannot afford it because the figure is already astronomical. And also you can consider offering them this term so that the URA can undertake the redevelopment and they do not have to pay any premium, and the URA can also build those flats as subsidized flats so that more people can benefit. And fourthly, the administration should streamline the procedures so that you will make it easier for them to put up those flats for redevelopment, and that will also help expedite the progress, and also for those more rundown buildings, and if they are willing to pay the premium at the level 7 years ago, then they should be given priority. Thank you. Next, the floor is now open to members. I'll read out the names. We have to grasp the time. Albert Chan, Claudia Mo, Chen Yun Han, Anne Chiang, Sid Ho. Anyone else? Alan Leung. 7 members. Because we would also like to have the administration's response, and we will also have to deal with a motion moved by Ms. Anne Chiang. It's already 1:10. Please also understand that we are short of time, and therefore please be as brief and concise as possible in your questions. Albert Chan, 2 minutes, please. Thank you, deputations, for coming This is a historical problem. It's time for us to seek an early solution to the problem. I'm grateful to all of you for your contribution to the Hong Kong government. You've provided a lot of services to the government and the community. And for many years, we have these loyal civil servants who have worked so hard for the prosperity and happiness of all in the community. All right, this is a historical problem, and in the end, to solve the problem, we have to amend the legislation because we're talking about a major operation. Because without such an overhaul, we would not be able to solve the problem. So along those lines, please go back and think about it and give us a more specific suggestion. I think we have to do one of the followings. Either we try to put up the societies as limited companies so that well, if anybody is interested, then it would be like a shareholding company and the dividends will be distributed. And if it's, we could also turn it into something like a housing society or HOS flats. So can you convert them into something like an HOS so that you will continue to stay there? And if you sell those flats, and then they will be sold as if HOS flats, whereby you will have to pay the premium. And thirdly, all the societies or cooperative societies could be turned into a headquarter company, and then through the change to the Charter of Association or Article of Association, then you will have to follow the rules to be followed by cooperative societies, and the administration might have to inject some money into these societies. So you will have to think about it. Either you work with the housing society or the URA. There are different approaches. But then in any case, we will have to come up with something that is feasible to you all. So what kind of outcome do you want to see? All right, if you just want to get a sum of money for retirement, and if you can also apply for PRH, that's one thing. And second is, as what I suggested, can it be turned into HOS flats so that they can be turned into some form of subsidized housing? So you will have to think about it, and then you will have to come back to us with a reply. All right, I just received the notification from Ms. Ann Chiang, and she would like to move a motion, and I'll be reading that out later. All right, to grab the time, Ms. Claudia Mo, she's not here. Ann Chiang, thank you. Chairman, I think you've heard dozens of friends are here. All right, they are already in their 80s or 90s. Many of them have to use crutches, and they are telling you their plight. All right, buying a flat is a good thing. And just now a friend said that many years ago he was able to buy a flat in Kwun Tong with tens of thousands of dollars, but then he or she decided to buy this CBS flat, and many civil servants have told us that actually they were able to afford the deposit, and they could have bought a flat in Mayfu, and that would cost them tens of thousands of dollars. But then the administration said that you can work together, and then I'll offer you this concessionary premium. That's why they thought that it's a good deal. But then subsequently, this flat became their nightmare. All right, you talk about aging in place, and all you want is to have a good retirement life, but then apparently that's not the case, because so long as the flat has not been settled and dealt with properly, then you would not be able to enjoy your retirement life, and many people simply are not able to go home. All right, they'll have to rent a flat nearby, or they will have to stay with the children and so on, but then the flat cannot be let out. So they will be left vacant. So we have people who do not have a flat to live in, and there are also flats that are left vacant without people living in. I think it's a very simple situation, and I've also heard from many friends, you don't have to do it in one go, because every time when there is a society, all right, their conditions or circumstances would be different, and the administration can also do it step by step. All right, you can also leave it to the URA, and then you can resume as many flats as possible. You don't have to worry about this. All right, if that's resumed or acquired by the administration, people will criticize you for being for colluding with the government. And there is a collusion between the government and the business sector. You don't have to worry about that. I don't think, well, I'll just cut the long story short. It's actually, you can have a flat for flat exchange. You can actually turn it into HOS. Do I have to read out the wording of my motion? Well, you'll read it out later. Chen Yun Han, is it my turn, Chairman? All right, good that I can make it. All right, I've been shuffling between my office and here. All right, we all know that this is happening, and some of my friends are also living in CBS flats. That's why I fully understand your situation. Well, my view is, what I'd like to say to the administration is, well, for the relevant legislation, you need to review it. Whether it's under the British rule or under the current SAR government, I think this is something that you will have to sort out. Well, CY has been looking for land everywhere. How come he's not thinking about these sites? I'm not saying that they should be given priority, but then it should be given some priority thoughts. Well, Khao Pui Long Road is close to where I live. All right, these are low density blocks. So why hasn't the administration thought about this? All right, CY, apparently you're going for the more difficult cases instead of the easier ones. I think what they are stating today is a fact. There is no lift and they're already quite old. What happens? So if you're not able to live there, then what happens? Of course, different people have different stories and different people might have different thoughts. But then on the whole, we believe that the administration will have to think about it. And if you're able to do a good job here, actually, that will end up in a win-win situation. Nobody will lose out. You will help them solve their problems. So I think the administration should think about it, and government officials should go back and tell Paul Chan that this should be given high priority in discussing your policies. If you just leave it here, then my suggestion is, Chairman, as soon as possible, we should take it up within this council. Should we allow the administration to drag its feet? Well, my suggestion is at the development panel meeting next session. All right, during the next session, we will put this up on our agenda. So we'll see what they will be doing. All right, we have met with different deputations and they have shared different views. Yes, they might have different views, but then the thing is, we need to have a policy change. So we will have to deal with this as an urgent matter. And the administration and the public and you will have to work together. We will have to come up with something that is acceptable to all, because we are faced with many situations. And I try to rush down to the meeting. And just now, this woman said, what is going to happen after this? All right, after this discussion, what is going to happen? This is not what we would like to see. All right, at the October meeting, we will have to put this up as the first agenda item. We would also ask the administration to come up with a specific answer. Is that okay? All right. Sito. Thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful to all the owners for coming to tell us your stories, because coming here once will mean that you will have to climb a long flight of stairs before you can go back home. In fact, I think they are even worse off than those living in old tenement blocks, because for old tenement block owners, they can rent their flats to others, and then they can rent another flat. But then what these owners are faced with, can they sell it, or can they, although do they have to stay there? And when they have to pay the premium difference, well, often at time that would be a lot higher than the 2/3 or the half premium that they have been granted a waiver. And as some said, this is a benefit and therefore it should not be recovered, because that was one of the conditions of service, and therefore that should never have been taken back. In fact, he was trying to help you. But then we also have to ask this question. We have to put this to the administration. All right, the URA has a role to play. I've read all the submissions. I can also see that some owners have suggested that they can adopt the URA approach. All right, you would only be given compensation at a price comparable to a 7-year-old flat. All right, I think it should be a flat-for-flat exchange. And also for the elderly owners who are living in the apartment, actually, the longer they stay there, the more difficult. So you will have to help them solve this problem of mobility for the Belcher approach. I think everybody will applaud for it. So you can also allow them to rent a replacement flat for the time being, and then when they come back, there can be a flat-for-flat exchange. But then the administration might say that, all right, it's already 50 years old, so there is no way that I can offer you a 1,000 flat in return. So there can be a discount. There can be further negotiations. The most important thing, the administration should immediately approach the owners of these societies so that they can come up with a solution that is acceptable to all.
Mr. Alan Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to thank deputations on behalf of the Civic Party. Our party thinks that in Hong Kong we need land for housing development, and many people complain that they can't purchase a flat. Now, on the other hand, we have this CBS blocks. With proper arrangement, these flats can be turned into flats for public. So we urge the administration to deal with the CBS blocks, to revive the buildings, and that the residents are getting old. It's not suitable for them to live there anymore. We hope the administration will put forward solution so that the land can be released. Some members asked to have a more in-depth discussion and asked the administration to come up with appropriate plans so that we can release the land resources. I agree with this proposal. Mr. Lam Kwok-hong. Sorry, Chairman, I have been shoveling between meetings. I think the crux of the matter is that the government is complicating the matter. They signed the contract with the landowners. They have to honor the contracts. If there is land premium, they have to make it clear why they're doing that. Now, having listened to the deputation, the administration should ensure that the living environment is not dilapidated. The living environment should not be unsuitable for people to live in. That's because the environment, the building is so old that it's not suitable for people to live in. Now, you know the residents have a hard time climbing up the stairs, and you ask them to stay in these blocks without stairs, without lifts. Now you know their plight, so there should be a plan to convert the CBS blocks or to build residential homes instead, to replace the CBS flats. Let's say you allocate 10 CBS sites for this purpose, then that's fine. There is this worry that if civil servants are to pay low land premium, and there is this impression people get that you are giving advantages to the civil servants. I understand this worry, but this is not what's happening. I understand the residents' logic. People accuse you of wanting to get rich, but this is not your case. You say that you just want to have a flat. However, there is this false impression in the community. People accuse you of being greedy even when you are old. I understand this is not true. I understand your plight, so I think there should be a policy. Otherwise, it will be useless just to discuss it. All right, any questions for the first round? Any further questions? If not, well, second round, Ms. Chen Yun-han, I want to facilitate our discussion. The government passes the buck. The government passes the responsibility to other parties, to URA and private developers. I don't accept this attitude. And just now, Lam Kwok-hong said that there is this wrong impression in the community, and the residents are being accused of wanting to get rich, but that's not true. Now, deputations, if you want to get hold of the government's paper, please let me know. Now, first of all, I want to say that I don't think the land should be passed on to private developers for development, and I don't think the people should approach URA because URA is also a developer, according to Peter So. That's why the government should come up with a solution that is acceptable to all parties, and they should submit the proposal to LegCo for discussion. So please don't pass the problem to URA or private developers. We should solve the problem right here. Because of the time constraint, I think we're moving towards the end of the meeting. I'll give 4 minutes to the administration for reply. The government needs new thinking. You are swimming against the current. You are taking up the most difficult task. But then you need to have new thinking in your operation. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. If you pitch yourself against the public, that won't solve the problem. So 4 minutes to the administration to address points raised. Thank you, Chairman. And my thanks to deputations to come here to talk about your views on CBS flats. And I would like to thank members for your suggestions too. They will be helpful for considering redevelopment projects and redevelopment of CBS flats. I have to reiterate that on the 28th of May and in early June, 12th June, the Secretary of the Bureau already said that there are technical aspects and historical aspects to this problem, and it's difficult to come up with an all-rounded solution. And the administration has to consider the fairness and the implication on other policies. When dealing with this matter, Policy Bureau and departments are now working on this issue. To respond to Ms. Chen Yunhan's question, first of all, the administration never says that the CBS members and the CBS wants to make use of the flats so that they can get rich, or they're asking for the removal of land premium so that they can get rich. They never said that. We have 11 redevelopment projects completed already by working with the private developer. The most famous one is the Belchers. So if the project can be taken up by private developers, the administration should not step in. But if the developers encounter any difficulties, the government can consider what we can help. Many civil servants or retired civil servants and members have expressed their views. To summarize, I think they boil down to 4 points. I'm not going to go into details here. Now, most of the points say that most of these are CBS buildings are old without lifts, and the elderly residents have difficulty in going in and out. They may not have sufficient means to repair the block. So this is one of the points, common points made. Secondly, members and residents asked to expedite redevelopment of the CBS flats. Now we have to look at 2 aspects under redevelopment. First, land premium is a tricky issue. Some ask for concession when a premium is paid. Some say that there should not be any premium requirement. Now, land resources is valuable in Hong Kong. The government would like to identify more land for housing development. In redeveloping its CBS flats, we can release land resources and can push up the housing supply. Another point is to ask the administration to put forward a solution or solutions for discussion to see if we can help redevelopment of the buildings or facilitate discussion between the CBS residents and the private developers. So many points have been made. But to briefly respond, I'm not going to talk about the history because I don't have much time left. If I may, Chairman, I want to talk on 2 more points. Just now, some deputations made certain points. I want to address that. Now, in 1994, there was this court case between the administration and the CBS. As I understand, there were 20 CBS filing an application to High Court asking the administration to remove the land premium requirement. This point was raised just now. I understand that on the day in question, the legal representatives of both parties have already made their cases and the court case resulted in settlement. The administration already said that the land premium requirement is legal and lawful. So this is the point I want to make just to remove any misunderstanding. Land premium and the possible concession of land premium has been raised. When the CBS scheme was launched in 1952, and when it ran up to the 80s, some CBS members asked to transfer the flats. But to do that, first of all, the CBS has to be dissolved, and then land premium has to be paid. All these have been stated in the contract. This is a well-established mechanism, and we have been operating on that. As at last month, over 1,000 landlords have paid the premium and get full title of the flat. So the mechanism has been working all along, and the calculation of land premium is well established as well. To change the mechanism, we have to tread cautiously. It doesn't mean that we will not consider that. Some members said that in looking into this matter, we can release land resources. But I have to stress that for land premium, we have to look into it. We have to look into it from the point of view of optimizing resources, the use of resources. We're happy to liaise with all parties to talk with you, and we'll also see how we can help the redevelopment of the CBS buildings. Thank you. Society has changed, so the administration should change its mindset. You keep using this excuse that there's no precedent, but you need someone to create something new so that you can set a precedent. So you do need some new ideas. Don't say because there's no precedent, you will not take something up. For you to have a president, first of all, you have to have something new. Ms. Chan, what's your point? Time's up. I only have the power to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Well, you can stop me from speaking, Chairman. I'm simply asking the administration to introduce new thinking. Don't just rely on the private developers. I support you, Chairman. Without something new, you can't set any precedents and you can't solve anything without thinking. So I support you, Chairman. Dr. Ann Chan, your motion, please. Please read it out. And see if colleagues agree that we deal with the motion now. Miss Chang. Having listened to members' views, I have added something to the motion. I think it's being photocopied. We have up to 45. If we have to extend the meeting, I have to ask for members' agreement. All right, this is the motion. The CBS buildings are old, and the buildings are subject to frequent repair. This is a burden on the residents. The buildings come without lifts, and it's difficult for the elderly residents to move up and down, so they can only rent another place to live in, or they have to live elsewhere. They can't live in their home, and the flats can't be rented out, so there's a high vacancy rate. These flats are vacant, whereas some people in Hong Kong do not have a roof over their head. On the other hand, the administration faces the problem of land supply. It's difficult to get land in urban areas, especially. This council urges the administration to start redevelopment of CBS flats immediately and to increase land supply in urban area and to submit an acceptable package within half a year. A package that is acceptable to both parties. So shall we deal with the motion here? Shall we get a seconder? Right, seconder. Mr. Ho. All right, what about other members? No, we have to put it to the vote to see if we deal with it now. We have to press the bell. Well, if you don't want to call a quorum, then it's fine. We don't need the bell. But we have to follow the rule. Shall we press the bell? Please press the bell, otherwise the members won't come.
10個啊哥，仲有我要擺大碼啦，我上咗足療先。打佢叫佢翻嚟，我真係。1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8個。係啊，有22號繼續。得2個人喎。舉手啦，唔好記名啦，記名就好耐。我手勢食晏晝咗啦。 啱夠。好啊，你都打到5分鐘㗎係咪？生日最讀落去喎。2個鐘，2個鐘，嚇！一向5分鐘喎，一向就5分鐘喎，唔可以偷雞喎。哇！嗰度喺度喎，我話都犀利喎。哇！過去度好嘢喎真係。好啦，因為我哋就係進行表決，就表決阿蔣麗芸議員嘅動議，或者內容而家擺喺大家台上。
All right, the motion has been tabled.
So, please, or you want a show of hands? So to save time, we'll do it by a show of hands. All those in favor, please put up your hands. Those who are in favor of the motion, please put up your hands. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Ms. Sit Ho, Gary Fan, Chen Chi Chun, Ann Chen, Chen Ka Lok, Ellen Leong, Chen Yun Han, and Ms. Mei Kun. So all members are in favor except for the chairman who doesn't have the... Dr. Fernando Jiang, I think I've already read out your name. None against. So it's unanimous. So with that, I think we may now adjourn our meeting. I'd like to thank the officials and the deputations for their attendance. AOB, if there's no other business, I now declare the meeting adjourned. We will resume our meeting at 9 a.m.